we're not able to find her video for some reason. She says she can hear us. And when it comes time to present, we'll hopefully have her audio. We'll see.
All right. Well, welcome everyone. How about now? All right, there we go. All right, welcome everyone to the December 21st meeting of the Distressed Unit Appeal Board. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Justin McAdam. I am the chair of this board. We have a number of items on our agenda today related to Gary Schools. As is our custom, we will take public comment today. So if you do wish to sign up, we do have one person signed up here in person. And then if you wish to sign up to speak to us virtually, please send a message to Pete Miller here in the next minute or so, and we'll be sure to get you in so that you can make public comment. Before we do that, I do want to move to approve the minutes from the November 17th, 2021 public meeting. Those have been circulated in advance. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Okay, hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
A motion and a second. I think we can take it. We have no one virtually, board members. Pete, do we have any virtual board members today? Okay. Okay. Well, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. The minutes are approved. We will move to public comment. As a reminder, we ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes as best as possible. We will let you know as you approach that time. We do have one person signed up for public comment. We have Ms. Kendra Johnson here. Ms. Johnson.
Good afternoon to each and every one of you. I'd like to thank you, first of all, for the opportunity to address you. My name is Kendra Johnson, and I have been an advocate in my community for over 25 years in terms of education, transportation, and public housing. At the last DUAB meeting, I stated that I would be working on a project to do training with parents on how to be involved in their child's education. Well, I'm glad to inform you that on December 13th, I went back to my hometown of Gary, Indiana, and I did 2 workshops, one on December 14th and one on December 15th. The first workshop was at Christ United Methodist Church via the Save Our Families Committee. The second was at Trinity UCC, and it was very successful. I had one at 10 in the morning, one at 5, just like Title I law states that it should be done for parents, so that those that work in the evening can attend in the day, those that work in the morning can attend in the evening. And because of the attendance and questions that were presented to me, we will be doing another one in the spring. Hopefully it will last for an entire week. Parents let me know, and community individuals who attended the meeting let me know what they were interested in finding out more about. And I was, and it was at no cost to any parent. So hopefully when we go back, we're going to also try and arrange to see if there's a way to do childcare. At the first church, there was childcare provided for parents that wanted to come. And so we're going to be working on that in the spring, and I will keep you updated. Lastly, I attempted to attend the Title I meeting virtually that the Gary Community School Corporation had. but unfortunately, they ran into some serious technical difficulties. So I can understand why some of the parents are having technical difficulties with their children and their e-learning. Thank you and have a great afternoon.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. All right, Pete, was there anyone else who signed up in the interim there? All right, great. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate that feedback. We'll move to our next item of business today. We do have a number of updates from our executive director, Pete Miller, about a number of contracts that he reviewed since our last meeting that are within his delegated threshold to approve. Mr. Miller?
6 contracts. Like for him. Full cost of it. Through $2. Elementary school. For activity buses. Transportation for homeless students. Funded through title. There could be a handful of cases where if those buses were used by someone for some other purpose, that would be reimbursed to that fund. So the procedures are in place for that. There was a lighting audit that's part of a broader project to improve the efficiency of lighting in the district. Cost of that initial step was $49,000. And that is a school improvement fund 1065 project. There is a project for painting the lockers at Bailey. That is also a 1065 project. The total amount there was $52,600. Previously, we had done a project for the video board at the football field at the high school. But come to find out there's some fiber optic cable that's needed for that video to work. So there's a project for $86,901, also funded through the 1065. And then the last purchase were for welding machines at the Career Center. 5 welding machines total. The cost altogether was $51,556. And that was also funded through ESSER 2 dollars. So those are the 6 contracts that I had authorized in the last month.
Any questions for Pete about those contracts or for representatives of Gary Schools? All right. Pete, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next item of business is an update from our Gary School Corporation manager. I believe we have Dr. McNulty joining us via WebEx today. Dr. McNulty, can you hear us?
So we may just have to do her sound the old-fashioned way. Okay. Okay, it's fine. She's gonna try to just dial on the phone.
Okay. Bear with us for a moment.
It is, but she's gonna try to call on the phone, so maybe. case, we'll just put her on the back. Try to just put you on the back. We can.
Okay. I apologize for the technical problems. I think that the other panels are also having the same problem, just like about that. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, again, I apologize for the problem. So, good afternoon. First, I want to say,
Hey, Paige, could you mute your computer sound, please?
how's that?
Still getting an echo.
Pete, I think you have to mute me on your end.
I think it's better. So try again, please.
Hello? It's not allowing me to mute on my,
Right, but can you mute your microphone?
I'm clicking and it won't let me mute.
Right. Well, how about you just shut off the meeting from WebEx and we'll just hear your audio through the
Okay.
phone.
Okay, is that better?
It is.
Yes.
You said yes?
Yes. Sounds
Okay.
great. Please proceed.
All right. All right. Sorry, everybody. Okay, first I want to thank Ms. Kendra for her diligence in her workshops and her advocacy on behalf of parents and students. And we look forward to partnering with her. If she'd like to work with us in the future, we'd be happy to offer some daycare or to do a joint session with her. So we again thank her for her help with educating parents. I did want to talk about students have been busy in our district this last several weeks working on community-based projects. As part of our month's character traits for social emotional learning, the students are focusing on the trait of giving, and many of the schools have been doing service learning activities within the district. We've been thankful that many of our community partners have also come to our school and have given many gifts and presentations to our students, such as Boeing, and many local businesses gave us Christmas trees for our students to be able to decorate at all of our schools. We had hundreds and hundreds of coats that were donated. The mayor's office brought over several busloads of kids and gave out several hundreds of coats to our students. So we're very thankful for all of our community partnerships. We've been giving out lots of boxes of food and toys to families that might be in need. We do have some coats that are left over, so if there's any family, we've been letting them know if there's any family in need of a coat, please reach out to your FACE liaison because we want to make sure to get those in the hands of students. We also hosted our first holiday feast for the community, and we did that in December about a week or so ago. We had a huge turnout that came to Westside. We provided buses that shuttled families and any community member, you didn't have to have a student in our district, to our school for a holiday feast. We had our fine arts students that were performing dances. We had the band playing. We had choirs from all different levels singing throughout the day. It was a wonderful event, very well attended, and we had great feedback from those who came. So we plan on doing more of those as the year goes on. It was a great way for us to sit and have informal conversations with hundreds of family members. So I want to thank everybody who participated in that. Our ROTC program has added many new members to its program, and they've also formed 2 new groups at each of the middle schools. The ROTC students are regularly posting colors at our sports games and also within the city at many events. I want to thank them and thank the ROTC sponsors who are getting that program definitely up and running in a great way. We're excited to announce that our IT department was awarded $1.4 million in a grant recently. This grant's going to enable us to continue to purchase additional supplies that we're going to need for replacement and smart boards for the classrooms, and also help us to reimburse for some bills that we've already paid and to continue to enhance our fiber network. So great job to our IT department, and we're excited to be able to bring those forward in the next couple of months. We also, our high school students partnered with the Urban League this month to work on the FAFSA applications and college readiness paperwork. So we had several busloads of students that went to the Urban League and partnered with their ambassadors. It was a great success. We appreciate their partnership, and we did have many students who've already received scholarships because of this effort, and we look forward to hearing future recipients as we move forward in the process. IUN University, as you know, we partner with them for our cohorts for our teachers who are getting their licensure. They've announced to us that they've gotten a positive recommendation from the State Board of Ed to approve their new special education transition to teach program, which we're very thankful for. Because as you know, that the special ed EPs will no longer be available in the coming future. So because we have a strong partnership with them, we look forward to being one of the very first recipients of this new program so that we can continue to grow our own with a paid licensure to support those teachers going into the special ed that we'll continue to use our title funds for. I also wanted to talk about, we are on winter break until January 3rd. We do still have some things happening within the district between now and then. We do have a public board meeting later today that I'll be hosting at the district at 6 o'clock to talk about the tentative teachers bargaining agreement, and also one on the 27th at 10 o'clock to sign the agreement. So I wanted to make sure that people knew about that, and that we have a basketball game tonight starting at 5:30 for JV and 7 o'clock for our varsity, if anybody's interested in coming to watch our basketball game. And with that, I'll take any questions that you might have.
Questions for Dr. McNulty? Dr. McNulty, how we've been hearing a lot more about COVID in the news these days, and certainly I know the state is seeing an uptick in cases. What do things look like there on the ground at Gary schools?
Yeah, we have absolutely seen a uptick in COVID cases, not only in Lake County, but within the Gary Community Schools. We're continuing to obviously follow our COVID protocols. I do know that the Lake County superintendents, we are all meeting over Christmas break to continue to discuss how it's looking and follow the numbers and to talk to the local health departments. Some districts are talking about alternative plans after Christmas break. We are continuing to, at this point, open as usual. And if something should have to be done, we'll do it on an individual school basis.
How, on a related topic, I know you've also had some issues with buses, and I know you and your team pulled together a plan in fairly short order to address that need. How is that going, and what do you see the future of that looking like?
Yeah, the buses continue to be a challenge. We had 12 bus drivers that called off all on the same day for several days in a row here in the last 2 weeks or so. And so that obviously is creating a challenge within the district. We did put the bus vendor up for an RFP. We did have 5 vendors that showed up for the pre-bid meeting here in the last 10 days or so. So we're optimistic that we'll have some interest in our busing services as we move forward. Those RFPs are due back at the end of January, and we'll be presenting something to the board as we move forward.
Great. Mr. Bennett?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. McNulty, could you give us an update on the truancy issues that we've discussed in the past? And I also would like to know how our breakfast menu is doing and how well that's been received, the changes that you made. And then I certainly want to wish the basketball team the best of luck this season and hope they can follow up last year's season with another one. So if you could give us an update on the truancy and on the food menu.
Sure. The truancy, we have hired a truancy officer, so we're very excited about that. He has hit the ground running. He has been meeting with parents and students who are in our red level, if you will, and working with the juvenile court system. So I know that he is actively attending those court hearings with the families, and they're coming up with plans. They have to be in communication, the judges, probation officers, and us. They have to develop a plan and be in communication with us. So that's probably maybe in 6 weeks into its implementation stage at this point, but I definitely believe that's going to make a difference, having someone who is actively touching, those kids each day as far as where they are, and the parents are being held accountable as well. So I think that's going to be a good thing. I also think that with our new teachers contract that we just negotiated, the accountability of the teachers taking attendance will also help that situation. In addition, the food menu has been received very well. We've got a new menu that's out. I think the Sodexo and our school district is doing a good job advertising that. And we've had many parents who've come in and take us up on the offer of eating at the school. So I definitely have seen an improvement. Not that we're still not making strides towards more improvements, but I have seen an improvement, and I'm hearing good feedback from parents and kids.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. McNulty, one of the things that obviously has been a hot topic for you guys as well is the number of fights that you had earlier in the fall. Give us a status update on where things stand with that issue.
Yeah, we have done, I think, a tremendous job of getting that under control. So, it was rough at the beginning of the school year. We acknowledge that, we owned that, and we've worked really hard on setting procedures in place and doubling down on our social emotional efforts with students, and also staff accountability as far as when the bell rings, particularly at the high school. The expectation is that all staff are in the hallway assisting with monitoring and talking with students for de-escalation. We've done several professional developments with our staff and our officers on de-escalation, etc. So because of that, we didn't have a fight, I'm going to say, for at least 6 weeks. I know that the last maybe 2 weeks before Christmas break at all schools, things to rev up. I think we had a fight or two, but nothing like we were having at the beginning of the school year. So it has significantly gotten better.
That's great, and I know you have an item on here to help continue your efforts that way. Appreciate the work you've done to make it a safe environment for students.
Yes, definitely.
Other questions for Dr. McNulty? Tracy?
Yes. Can you tell me who awarded the $1.4 million grant, IT department?
Yeah. Paige, do you mind if I take that one?
Sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Yeah.
They were asking about the $1.4 million grant, but Nathan's going to handle this.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Yeah. So it's called the Emergency Connectivity Fund, ECF. And I believe it's not federal DOE. It's, I believe, the FCC. Yes, it is. So that grant basically, or do you want me to go more into it? Or I guess I answered your question. So I'll stop there then. Okay. All right.
Was that a competitive grant that you guys had to apply for, or how did that work?
Yeah, so essentially, I do believe it was marketed as such. However, I know that there was not as many applications as what the feds expected. So in essence, it was a one-time opportunity, and they came back to us and said, "Do you want to apply again for more additional activities?" So we technically had 2 separate submissions. Both were funded, and both are really helping with tech needs as we continue to adjust from the pandemic. So some of it's recouping some costs that we paid already for hotspots and so on, and then some to be able to refresh, devices that were broken, lost, stolen, that kind of thing as we move forward.
Okay. I'm sorry, you said it there at the end, but I missed it. You're going to use it on.
Yeah, so there's essentially three main activities. One is hotspots, and that's really reimbursing ourselves. So we'll make sure to account for all that correctly based upon the original source of funding, and communicate with DOE regarding who paid for it initially, because we did pay for a lot of that with CARES money. And then a round of Chromebooks, and then a round of iPads for our youngest children. And so both of those will be forthcoming. I believe we have the packets ready to go. And they likely will be on the docket for next meeting when we have that.
Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for Dr. McNulty or the team? Okay. Next, we have the accountability dashboard. Eric, I'm not sure who, are you presenting
Yep.
this?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. On page, it's 135, the PDF page. So if you printed it out, it's 134 on the printed page is where the accountability dashboard starts. And just a reset to remind you, this has been an ongoing initiative since the start of the 2019-2020 school year with quarterly updates. So this is the current update. And the dashboard is broken into the 4 pillars that include academics, engagement, operations, and fiscal. This dashboard that you're looking at is the second update for the school year 21-22. And that is why most of the metrics are not completed. You'll see almost all of the academics are yet to be determined because those are based on formative and summative assessments, which will happen later in the year. And even some of the engagement and operations, even though they're underway, they may not have much to report yet because there's a cumulative effect that we'll report out towards the end of the year. However, we do update this quarterly, and the objective of the document is to inform the community, parents, teachers, students, anybody who may be interested, stakeholders, about what are the major initiatives going on in the school corp and where are we at in those initiatives. And the document is posted on the website every quarterly update. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Thank you.
Yeah.
Next, we have the path forward.
And that's going to be Kim, and I'm on the backup. So if she's unable, I'll roll through.
Best Kim impression.
Hello? Are you all able to hear me?
Kim, I think I've unmuted you. Try. I'm not sure we'll be able to hear you, but you want to give us
Are you able to hear me now?
I can hear you. This is Eddie.
Okay, I'm not certain that the meeting is going to be able to be.
Yeah, I'm absolutely. So the path forward is an extension of the dashboard. The dashboard, as you noticed, is dozens of pages with lots of information. The path forward is a summary. It's the same 4 pillars: academics, engagement, operations, and fiscal. And it gives us more flexibility. It's just 2 pages, and we also update it quarterly, also posted on the website, but also Dr. McNulty, she takes the dashboard with her when it's updated on the quarterly basis to public forums, but it's somewhat unwieldy because it's so big. And so the path forward is a much more user-friendly document for a public forum, just as a handout. We put it in our schools. Parents can take it with them if they visit. And it highlights some of those initiatives and activities within those 4 pillars. Same cadence. It's updated quarterly. It comes out at the same time as the dashboard. And like I said, it's posted on the website as well as, because it's 2 pages, can be used as a handout. And with the flexibility, it doesn't always tie exactly to the dashboard. There's some information in here that we share in those 4 pillars that are not on the dashboard. So using them both together gives a good snapshot of the quarterly activities. More contemporaneous, whereas the dashboard's more cumulative and annual looking.
Great.
Any questions?
Right, thank you very much. Up next, we have the collective bargaining agreement. I believe Dr. McNulty is here to update us on that. By here, I mean on the phone.
Do this audio again. Joe, speaker right now. Okay. All right, Dr. McNulty, we're ready for an update on the collective bargaining agreement, please.
Yeah, I'm gonna log out of the computer again so I don't echo. Okay, it is with great pleasure that I'm able to present that we have come to an agreement for our tentative collective bargaining agreement. Again, that it was voted and ratified on Friday at 4:30 by the teachers union. I appreciate the executive council's diligence and work with us on getting this done. We did go to mediation. We had a great mediator, and we were able to come to a good, I think, agreement that will serve both teachers and also students. So the agreement basically talks about that we will offer a 3% increase to our teachers on the base. And then we felt very strongly that we needed to have performance metrics built into our contract to specifically address some of the needs that we feel like we have that are unique to Gary. And some of those, again, are increasing our attendance of our teachers, attendance taking, and also increasing the expectations as far as academics. So we did build in 3 different categories or tiers, if you will, of performance metrics built in that they can earn throughout the school year, and they'll get it at the end of the year as this progresses. And we also talked about having a early retirement for teachers who are eligible for that. So I will present this tentative contract today at 6 o'clock, and then on the 27th, there'll be public comment for anybody who would like to just make a public comment about that on the 27th at 10, and then it will be formally adopted afterwards. Any questions?
All right, thank you, Dr. McNulty. The performance pay that is in there, is that a base pay adjustment or is that a stipend?
Oh, I'm sorry. Good question. Those are stipends, and they will be paid for out of ESSER, and that's we're using some of our ESSER funds that we have to commit so much percentage for learning loss, and we decided to use some of our ESSER dollars that are tied directly towards academic achievement. So it'll be a one-time stipend out of ESSER.
With the increase in the base pay, any metrics you can cite for us in terms of Gary's average teacher pay or starting teacher pay, where those things will fall after these changes?
Yeah, we should be about right in the middle. It'll be about $48,000, which when we look comparatively in Lake and Porter County in the state, that falls in the middle.
Is that starting or average?
That'll be average starting pay.
Average starting pay. Okay. Do you have a number for the average teacher pay for teachers as a whole in the district?
I'm sure Nicole does if she's on the line here.
Okay.
I don't have that off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we can follow up with that. That's fine. I'm just trying to get some context.
Yeah.
That's definitely something I can provide to you guys. I don't have that currently.
Collective bargaining agreement. All right. Well, this is an item that we do need to vote on. This falls under the requirement that we have to approve contracts over certain amounts. And so this is one of those contracts that we have traditionally approved. Because of the nature of the item and the fact that there is still work to be done to finalize it, I would recommend that we pursue a conditional improvement and approval, excuse me, approval to allow, I would say, conditioned on the contract landing in the same place that it's been presented to us today, and leave it to our executive director to verify those items after the fact. Done that before with a number of items, and that way they can move expeditiously towards resolution of this contract. That I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move that we approve the contract signed by the Gary Community School Corporation and the teachers union during the mediation last week, pending completion of the public meeting required by statute, subject to the provision that it is subsequently reviewed and approved by the executive director for the Distress Unit Appeals Board.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. The contract is approved. Thank you very much. And I do want to thank the Gary Teachers Union for their work in collaborating with the district to reach resolution on this. It's difficult discussions at times, and we appreciate that we could eventually get to an agreement that worked for both sides. So thank you very much. Next, we have consideration of a different contract relating to security vehicles with BOSAC Ford. Not sure who is presenting this one.
I will.
Nathan? Okay.
All right. So thank you everyone for consideration of this contract. As you've heard recently, the district is making progress in several areas related to school safety. So, that's multiple facets, SEL mindfulness training for kids to de-escalate, having a look at the, security of the building itself, and cameras and locations and training. And then here's another facet of having appropriate vehicles. So the ask here will give us 2 security vehicles that will be used by our security director, and then a named individual to travel between building to building whenever there is a need for more security response. Also, these will be a visible presence in front of the building at large events. Whenever we're hosting sectionals or having other types of things, you all know it makes a difference whenever there's a visible presence there posted outside of the building itself. So 2 vehicles, total price $67,000, and we'll place the order once we get approval from the board. If you have any questions, we'd be glad to entertain those.
Yeah. Do you currently have security vehicles?
No, these would be our first ones. We do have other vehicles, but these would be the first that would be considered security.
What policies do you have in place that are going to be specifically assigned to these particular vehicles?
Right. So we have been working hard on lots of policies in the district. We've purchased a package that a lot of school districts use through Neola that has school board policies, so that things like the use of corporation-owned vehicles and a huge number of other types of policies are all adopted. So I've provided the policies to Pete that are going to correspond with this, as well as some of our other vehicles that the district now owns, but those are maintenance in nature. These are the first ones for vehicles. So we do have policies now set that once purchased and those that are going to be using it will get more in-depth training. But basically, they're not take-home vehicles. We're going to store them securely at our buildings and grounds, and appropriate logging of the vehicles so that they're used for the intended purpose, properly maintained and properly secured, and so on, so that it's an effective use of this funding.
You utilize GPS devices on the vehicles owned by the school corporation?
So that is an option. that we have. That's a common option on school buses to have activity buses as well. So that it is an option presented to us. It's just not one that we've had to consider before because it's not ever been in our presence. But it is an option that we currently could place on these.
I would just, heads on the side of caution. I mean, these are different kind of vehicles than normal everyday vehicles that probably will have different police markings on them or lights or different things at some point in time that, you need to have extra careful and extra controls over them.
Yeah. And to clarify, these will be considered security vehicles, so they'll be labeled as security. They are hardwired for lights. And so that would be an option we could add at a later time, but the lights would not be police lights. They would be security lights. So we're talking about blue and yellow or blue instead of red and blue. But it will be clearly marked. And then we're also working with our local different municipalities, our police department, our fire department, getting, better agreements and updated agreements with them all. So they're very aware that we're proceeding with these so that we have good communication there as well.
Other questions for Nathan? Tracy?
You might have said this and I missed it. Who will this be assigned to?
Yeah, so these two specifically, our director of school safety and security, and then one of his leads, which is one of our school resource officers. And those two will be named as the primary users of the vehicles.
Hi, Nathan.
Hi.
Why did you decide to go with all-wheel drive instead of four-wheel drive?
Have you ever been to Lake County in the winter?
Well, I've been in St.
I'm
Joe
sorry,
County. in the winter. I've lived in St. Joe County in the winter.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the primary use. The main use, and sorry for being facetious there,
That's
but
okay.
we've got 10 different buildings.
Well,
and
let me interrupt, because there is a difference between all-wheel and four-wheel.
Right.
And these also come in front-wheel.
Right.
I understand front wheel's not necessarily conducive to what the climate and the environment you live in, but all-wheel drive does pose some additional maintenance. And it's one that I just want to make sure you understand that there is a difference between all-wheel and four-wheel. I agree that you need one or the other, but I'm just curious as to why you chose all-wheel drive over four-wheel drive.
Right. So when sharing the need, we worked with our Bosick, the nearby, and it honestly was their recommendation of a common. It's my understanding they work with numerous school districts in the area, and so the specific make and model that we chose is one that's commonly used by others as well.
Okay.
And so, to be honest, that's the primary reason that we went based upon their
'Cause
recommendations.
there's probably additional maintenance required.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime you change tires on an all-wheel drive, you got to change all four at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you've got two new ones that or two that are still good. So
Right.
just understand that an all-wheel drive does come with higher maintenance costs, serviceability costs than a four-wheel drive. And so
Okay.
just FYI.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that.
Was there a cost difference?
Not to my knowledge. We did share our needs with them, and that was, basically, and when talking about maintenance, that was one of the reasons why we went forward with this model and a brand new version is, something that would fit our needs, that would have maintenance covered for an extended period of time during the warranty that are provided by these vehicles, was a big part of moving forward. And then honestly, getting the new one, as you can see on the summary, they did give us a pretty healthy discount based upon us being a government agency. So price-wise, we were pretty pleased with the $33,000 for a brand new SUV because that's not the norm often of getting that quality of a vehicle for that price.
Nathan, what are you going to have to do aftermarket with it? I noticed this picture has a has a security light. What else are you going to have to do to it after they? I assume this is not the picture that I'm seeing here is that the actual unit or one of the actual units, or you have to order these?
It's not the exact unit. We won't be receiving that one. But yeah, the aftermarket is going to be any lettering on the side to label it as Gary Security. And then if we choose to put security lights on the top as well. But other than that, everything else is as delivered, everything included.
Does this have Echo Boost in it?
No, the Econo Boost is the 4-cylinder. This is a 6-cylinder, right? 3.3 liter.
So as it sounds like Wes is a
I'm
good
a former Explorer owner, and
Okay.
I believe that the 6-cylinder comes with an Echo Boost, which means it has a turbocharger on it.
Okay.
I learned this when I ordered a Ford Taurus to the state. They told me I couldn't get an Echo Boost. I thought, well, it doesn't make it economical. No, it has a turbo.
I know, Paul, I was thinking, is he pulling my chain when he was asking my
I'm not.
question? Or is he
I got
being
denied because I
serious?
thought, I want an Echo Boost. I mean, it's right. Good car. No.
Well, I was respectfully going to try to answer the question, but I know,
That's right.
And this is the 22, right? 19 or 2022.
yeah, it's,
Yeah. I don't think it's an Echo Boost.
Are you going to be able to get it?
yeah, yes. Yeah, we, the vendor has been confident in our ability to get it in a quick fashion. So, it's with other items, like for example, the buses, there's a very large lead time, but with this one, we're confident that we'll have a much faster turnaround.
I believe Senator Melton has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right, thanks. Kind of touched on it earlier when you mentioned that they will have the ability to have lights. I shared some thoughts and when I learned about this potential purchase and just being cautious in terms of the perception of over policing. I'm not familiar with any other school corporations, and I'm not saying that there isn't, but with security vehicles with the police lights. So just kind of doing that research and ensuring that you work not just with the local law enforcement, but also the county as well, that that they'll be familiar with these vehicles on the road. And that was just one concern that I had in terms of it's great to have a presence, to ensure safety for the students and the public, but just making sure that we don't go too overboard and looking over policing a school facility, be it high school or middle school. So just a few thoughts there.
Thank you. Yeah, to reiterate, I think this will improve safety, and I want to clarify they are security vehicles, not police vehicles. But I appreciate your thoughts. This will allow our staff, if there is a need to move quickly from one location to another, to be able to get there. And then, as I mentioned, that physical presence makes a big difference. If you have a large event and you're parking this vehicle outside of it, that plays into safety and security of it as well. And then lastly, I would comment, it actually is not unique that school districts have some type of vehicle like this. I actually have a neighbor who is a school resource officer who has a school issued vehicle. So other districts are definitely doing this, but we're making to address your concerns, Senator Melton. I do think having them identified as security vehicles and not police vehicles for the district will be important, but absolutely will communicate and have been and will continue to with our local law enforcement.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions regarding this item? Okay. With that, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve Gary Community School Corporation's purchase of 2 security vehicles from BOSAC Ford for an amount not to exceed $67,438.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion?
Quick question, Mr. Chair.
All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Thank you. Up next, we have the School Improvement Fund claims docket.
Nicole.
So Ms. Wolverton, I've got you unmuted. Hopefully we can hear you.
Hi, good afternoon. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, so on your agenda today, we've got claims for October and November. I think we delayed these from our last meeting, but mostly the claims for those 2 months, we're gearing up for preparing for the winter. So making sure all of our HVAC and boilers were maintained and had any improvements necessary. We also have some items for some gates and fencing that the district has been working on, as well as even though we're closed for break for the next couple weeks, we're going to still do some district-wide painting and also some other smaller maintenance items too, some plumbing upgrades and things like that. So for the 2 months, we've got a total of $542,437.01 for our claims total for your approval. We included in your packet this month a control document that I think we had used prior. And as we've kind of gone through this exercise, we've really been communicating as a cabinet on some of the additional needs and enhancements we can do on those control items as well to better present that for approval. So you'll see in this next meeting, we're going to kind of do a revised 1065 plan and then some more enhancements to this control document. So it makes it a little bit easier to follow and understand what project updates correlate to, specific line items within that 1065 plan.
Appreciate that, Nicole. Thank you for helping us clarify that. Are there questions for Nicole on the claims docket? Or the School Improvement Fund generally? Okay, hearing none. We do need to approve the claims docket. Would entertain a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the claims docket as provided for the period October 1, 2021 through November 30, 2021.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. Nicole, thank you for joining us today. Our last item of business is the MGT contract benchmarks. As you'll recall, when we entered into the contract, we negotiated the contract with MGT to continue as the manager for Gary Community Schools over a year ago, we included a number of benchmarks in that contract that made certain elements of their of the pay for their engagement conditional upon them achieving certain outcomes and following through with certain actions in the district. And so we do have some of those here before us today. We're trying to batch these so that we don't take them in drips and drabs. And we have with us Eric to present from MGT.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chairman. In your packet, there's 2 sections of benchmarks. One is on page 6, that's PDF page 6. Tracy, for those of you who printed it out, that is, let me look. It says page 5 in the lower right-hand corner. That's a memo that went to Courtney Skosma back in July, and that is for one of the benchmarks, the VDRP, the Viable Deficit Reduction Plan Compliance. And the format follows for each of the benchmarks, but the first paragraph is the exact language for the benchmark itself, and then the following documentation to support the achievement of that benchmark. In this, which is compliance and adherence with the VDRP, the documentation follows, but really the short answer is the deficit has have been reduced from $22 million when we started in August of 17 to 1.7 million at the end of December of 2020. Now, this was based on mid-year 2021, and we don't restate or recalculate the deficit during the year because of accounting timing and adjustments. We will update the deficit at the end of this calendar year, But the time the benchmark was due, it was based on December of 2020. So you can see the deficit has dropped over $20 million in the time frame. And there's a multi-million-dollar decrease in the time frame for this benchmark. And then the debt has reduced from $104 million to approximately $79 million in that same time frame. That's overall. What follows after that is how did we do that? And that was the adherence to the VDRP, 31 initiatives, 28 current, 3 in the future. And then what I did is for the memo is pick out several of the initiatives that either haven't started, so we can't say that's the reason for the decline in this school year or calendar year. But what are the main drivers for the decrease in the calendar year? And you can see there's some bullet points and then a table that highlights that. This format is consistent with prior years when this benchmark's been presented. It's just an ongoing update and again, a subset out of the VDRP and just a recap of to answer the question, yes or no, is there adherence and compliance? Is the deficit being reduced and if so, how? That's the first one. I think we'll pause there before we go into the next. It's a next section and it has a different pillar to it. So any questions on the fiscal adherence?
Questions for Eric regarding that benchmark?
All right, proceeding on. The next section starts on page 9 and there's 8 benchmarks in that section. These, let me back up one step. The benchmarks adhere to the 4 or follow the same 4 pillars: academics, engagement, operations, and fiscal. These set of benchmarks are related to engagement, and it's the same format. There's a statement of what is the exact language around the benchmark, and then documentation to support what happened during the school year. These are based on the school year. So the format follows the same, and there's an appendix for each of the 8 with supporting documentation. Don't want to roll through each of those. I don't want to tell you what you don't want to know or what you've read, but answer any questions around those. And just before I ask questions, there were academic benchmarks. That data was presented in the summer. It wasn't presented in this format. We did the formative and summative assessment data presentation that correlates back to those benchmarks. Then there'll be, as Chairman said, there'll be another batch of benchmarks that will come sometime in the future. There's a few that either at the point in time when these were presented, the data wasn't available yet, or a couple of the benchmarks haven't even started yet, even though they related back to the last school year. So we'll hold those, which is fine. And then we'll batch those up and we'll do this in another batch just like this. Questions around the batch of engagement benchmarks?
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Questions for Eric? All right.
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
You have had a chance to review the documentation. You've reviewed gone back and reviewed the contract language. Could you give us a sense of your findings there and give us a recommendation?
So there were 9 benchmarks presented for consideration, and I'll just kind of take them by the different groups. So for engagement, there were 5 of those. And so for the first 4, going back and comparing what the objectives in the contract were, they were all met. The engagement survey, the information was presented, so you have it, but the score did not increase as was put in the benchmark. So that would be one that was not met. If anyone does have interest in that survey, I'd be glad to share the entire results because there is some other informative information in there. As far as operations, there were 3 presented. The one-to-one technology implementation, that benchmark was met. Connectivity was met. And then for de-escalation training, although training was held, it was not there were some certain requirements that be held within a certain time after a new employee had started, and that it occurred, but just not within the time frame that was required. So that was not met in my estimation. And then for the viable deficit reduction plan, the substantial conformance was met in terms of the deficit being reduced from where it needed to be, and steps taken through June 30th of this year.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize for interrupting. I'm hearing that Eddie has questions and he's not been able to ask.
Sure.
Can you hear me?
Senator Melton, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. So, Eric, I need a little bit more clarity on the pillar of connectivity. Can you kind of unpack that a little bit for us? And I have a second question after that.
Yep. So the connectivity.
Sorry.
All right. So the connectivity was to ensure the objective of that benchmark is to ensure as we went into remote learning at the beginning of the 2019-20 school year and the uncertainty around that, that as we were pushing remote learning out to students and families, that we had the ability to deliver the content. And so the connectivity was making sure that our network reliability was at such a high level that students could and teachers could deliver and receive content on a consistent basis.
So help me understand in terms of how that connects to from an incentivizing standpoint. I guess I'm trying to
Yep.
grasp that.
Yeah, so it was an area of emphasis to make sure in that remote environment that connectivity was assured for students. And so it wasn't, it just elevated the area of emphasis to make that the highest priority possible to ensure everything that we would do every day that students and teachers could connect remotely.
All right. I guess I'm having a hard time grappling with that just because of every other district had to do the same thing as well during the pandemic. So that's just the concern I would throw, not concern, but just the issue I would throw out there with that. And that's why I didn't understand it. Second question, in terms of benchmarks, who actually set the benchmarks? Who came up with the benchmarks or the goals or the targets to hit?
Yeah, that was.
Well, Senator, I'll jump in. This is Justin. That was a collaborative negotiation. If you recall, Representative Smith was serving on the board at that time. And what the board decided to do was delegate the task of negotiating the contract to myself as chairman and Courtney as executive director at that time. And we worked closely with Eric and Paige and members of the MGT team to come together on an appropriate set of benchmarks for the contract. And so one of the things you'll see that we did in that contract, there was a substantial shift in building out the academic benchmarks. We wanted to emphasize academics more. We were coming out of a situation where it was clear that the financial picture was improving, and it was appropriate to shift more to a focus on academics at that time. And then there were a number of other items that we wanted to emphasize at that time. Obviously, we were still emphasizing financial objectives, obviously around balancing the budget and obtaining fiscal solvency long term, around ensuring clean audits, particularly around federal funds. That was a high objective at the time. Enrollment as a goal of increasing enrollment. On the connectivity side, the objective there was really we had just approved, really unconnected from the pandemic. The team had already begun to move down the path of one-to-one computing. That happened to be a happy accident in terms of planning, that they were prepared for the pandemic at that time. But obviously, one of the things that was important to Courtney and I as we were negotiating this was to ensure that those laptops could be effectively used in a remote environment. And that was something that was new for Gary schools. Connectivity had been a problem, and they were making substantial investments to bolster that connectivity and ensure that the service providers and the hardware would be up to the task. And so it was a relatively small incentive of $10,000 just to ensure that they maintained a high connectivity rate so that students would be able to continue to be engaged.
Okay. On the academic part, was DOE engaged in setting those benchmarks, or was it just members of DUAB?
Yeah, we had conversations along the way with members of the department and members of the Board of Education staff at that time to discuss what might be appropriate and what might be reasonable benchmarks for the district. You know, one of the things that we wanted to set goals that were both challenging in the sense that we want to encourage the team. We wanted to encourage the team to strive for better results, but we also didn't want to be unrealistic in setting those benchmarks such that they wouldn't be achievable within the time frame that we set forth. And so there was a lot of back and forth discussion on that with staff here at the state in the education departments, as well as with the team. And ultimately, we landed in an area that everyone was comfortable with. But I think, as you'll see, MGT and the team were unable to achieve those benchmarks, at least for this first year. And so that is an area, obviously, of continued emphasis, but also one that is reflected in the pay that they'll receive as part of the contract.
If I'm not mistaken, there were other, I guess, targets before these set of benchmarks were established from an academic perspective.
Yes.
So I guess what I'm hoping that either now or moving forward, and I believe we didn't hit those previous benchmarks in those previous sets, is a clear definition or explanation of what were the barriers or issues, why they couldn't, and what's the plan forward to address closing that gap or the academic achievement, not just hitting benchmarks for MGT, but actually increasing overall academic attainment, right? So we know through the presentation that DOE provided us a couple of months ago, statewide, there were issues, right, because of e-learning. So we can just kind of rule out whatever test scores and things like that during that pandemic timeframe, and that's kind of null. But pre-pandemic and current, moving forward, I think the community is looking for what's that roadmap? What were the barriers? How will that be addressed? So I just want to make sure that while we're talking about it right now, we have to be very specific and not kind of just hit it and move forward.
Yeah, Senator Melton, I completely agree with you. This has been an area of emphasis for Pete and I in our discussions internally over the past several months, and our well, really long, goes back longer than that, to be honest, but and also with Eric and Paige and their team have had a number of conversations about this topic. I'll let Eric and Paige touch on perhaps what their future plans are, but we are not content with the status quo as it stands right now, and that is something that we have communicated to them that it is an area that needs to be at the top of the list. It needs to be receiving the most attention that they can afford to give it.
Yes. Yeah, I would. Oh, go ahead.
That was your echo.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Absolutely. Agree with Chairman McAdams. Where we're at is not where we want to be or where we will be. We will be presenting what we call phase 3, but we're in phase 2 of the turnaround right now. We're getting ready to exit phase 2 and phase 3. And that phase 3 would include, an overemphasis on academics, the activities that are underway now, and what those outcomes will be as a result of those activities, and where we will be that we all want to be at. So that is in the spring of 2022. That will be presented. One of the last pieces which we'll talk about, I think, next month, is the consortium that just ended this month on innovative ways to turn academics. So that'll be a component of it. That's the last piece that we've been waiting on, and we'll incorporate that into the overall plan in the document.
So with that phase 3 that you're mentioning, that timeline, you say spring of 22, how does that dovetail into the expiration of MGT's contract? Like, how do we align all of this to make it make sense from a timing perspective, just so we can all have a better picture of expectations?
MGT's contract ends June of 2022. And whether, in our intent, our desire, our hope is to continue on to finish this turnaround all the way through the end. And there's the timeline is laid out, wrapped around some of the fiscal metrics, and the clock hasn't started to do that yet. So we want to get that clock going. But whether it's us or somebody, that plan would be a living document. The initiatives that have been put in place over the last years, and especially this last year coming out of the pandemic and the changes that have resulted from the pandemic, those are not specific to an external manager or operator, but specific to the school corporation itself.
All right. Well, I appreciate the response. I think, and this is to the chairman and to my fellow DUAB members, we have to be very mindful of timing with everything, right? And going into this legislative session, there's a lot of expectations that we heard at the public meeting in October. I believe that was October. That from an academic perspective, we had to be very intentional on what that roadmap is. And I think we need to engage, and this is my perspective, the DOE a lot more in terms of just overall academic achievement, because MGT is not going to be here forever. And if DOE has more hands-on now, as we're laying this out, and when there's time for transition, I think it will be a more seamless transition with that engagement. So I'll end there. Just appreciate the time.
Thank you, Senator Melton. All right, are there other questions about the benchmarks for us? Okay. Would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we find Gary School's recovery has met the requirements for the following year 1 benchmarks. Under engagement, the accountability dashboard, frequently asked questions, standing committees, and school advisory committee. Under operations, the one-to-one technology implementation and connectivity. And then under fiscal, substantial conformance with the viable deficit reduction plan. And further, I would move that we deny the benchmarks for engagement survey and de-escalation training.
There's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Eric. That is the end of our formal agenda. Is there any new business to come before the board today? All right. Well, hearing none, thank you all. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Hope you enjoy the holidays, and we'll see you back here in the new year. Bye-bye.
Okay. All right. You're all right.
Watch me run.